Part 2 of the planter build. Parts have been slow to come in, but they are trickling in. Some of the things we're working on this planter right now is getting the markers rebuilt. We went to Shoop for these pieces here. These were wore out as well as bent, so we decided to replace them. Shoop is half the price, and they actually are thicker material. Up at the top, John Deere used a pin through here, which was loose, wore, and had a lot of slack for this upper piece, so it would wobble back and forth. We drilled these out, used a 7/8 bolt, so we're shouldered the way through them now. The lower marker blades will be getting replaced and updated with the later style. And I have began doing layout work on the basic frame. Again, this is a continuation video, so if you're unfamiliar with the project, please watch Planter Build Video 1 first. As stated in Video 1, they sold these in 3 different models throughout the years. The main change was the row units, not the toolbar. This is a 7240, which would be first generation, followed by 1780, followed by 1785. If you have a 1785 and you want to upgrade it to an Exact-Emerge, they sell what's called a Product Performance Update Kit, PUC. So yes, you can take your new 1785 and you can add the Exact-Emerge row units to it. Now, John Deere does not sell, and they no longer sell, updates to the Max-Emerge 5 row unit. All Max-Emerge 5s or the same row unit, and when you buy Exact-Emerge, it's just the pieces and parts that fit amongst that cast iron frame that make it the Exact-Emerge. At one time, they had sold updates to the Max-Emerge 5 row unit to bring a regular Max-Emerge 5 to a 5E, or which they do still sell that, I believe, or you could go to the full Exact-Emerge. But since they've eliminated the Exact-Emerge, just the accessories, when you buy it now as a performance enhancement kit or a PUC, you basically are buying a complete new boxed up row unit. So if you were to buy a 1785 planter, it didn't have very many acres on it, and you were wanting to update it to the newer Exact-Emerge row units, it wouldn't make much sense because the planter is going to be much higher. So really it makes more sense to utilize an older, cheaper toolbar. Additionally, they do sell the PUC kit for the 1745 planter, but that's basically going to entail buying a new or very near new planter and adding it to it, as it's not available as a factory option. Now, if you're not familiar with what an Exact-Emerge is, Exact-Emerge is John Deere's newest technology. It's the high-speed row unit, which you are seeing here. This unit features 2 56-volt motors, one to run a belt delivery system and one to run the meter. This allows planting speeds of 10 miles per hour, which is basically twice the planting speed of a regular speed unit. When you order your Exact-Emerge row units or your PUC kit, they will give you different options to choose from. A couple of key options that we ordered on these would be the hydraulic downforce, as well as scrapers and spoked mud gauge wheels. In a situation as the build that we're doing on this planter, this works out very well for us because it gives us entirely new row units and updates the planter to what would be equal of a 1785 with the newer row units. If you bought a new 1785 and then bought the Exact-Emerge components and put in it, that's what we're going to have, except we're going to have one step above that with a CCS, which stands for Central Commodity System, meaning bulk fill. Showing you the highlights of the Exact-Emerge row unit. You have your parallel arms available in long and short, which the planter will have a series of both. That's how the row units will be staggered for corn and soybean rows. You have your front plate, this plate here, and then this lower cast shank unit bolts to the front plate. All this will be the same on any of the 5 series row units. Where the difference is where the Exact-Emerge system comes into play, and that comes from the electronics, which it's electronically powered and driven, again through 56-volt motors. They have the meter in the rear. You can see the meter housing here. This will be your double eliminators. Quite simplistic but effective row units. We really like the performance with these. Now, just doing soybeans, singulation is not as important, but when you start planting corn, it is much more important, in our opinion. And if you order a puck kit, you're going to get a large amount of boxes, as you're seeing here. And each box is going to be categorized with a parts list and as to what each section or whatever part of the planter that they're working on pertains to. So when you order this, they'll spit out a code here, and they'll give you the part numbers, and they'll say, here's the following kits for the following reasons. So you take a box like this, and I went through and organized a lot of these already. But you take a box like this, and you're going to end up getting guards, U-bolts, tone wheels. Over here we have a large box full of telecomatics, which are things like your 4G internet. Yes, that's the internet on a planter. And other electronics and things, such as this big box here with computers in it, fuse blocks, wiring harnesses, very big bags of wiring harnesses, and even new sets of decals, such as you're seeing here. And again, I've already went through and organized a majority of this. But back to as to why this planter has certain things on it, such as internet services, globe mounts, which would be your GPS receiver. That's for correction signals on the machine. That's for sending a database signal back to like John Deere online programs. I had received some questions about utilizing these older tractors to pull this planter. So this 4850 here would be rated 195 PTO horsepower out of the factory, 193 actually, I believe. This tractor came out factory without any Green Star or GPS or anything of that nature. I actually integrated the kit into this tractor and spent a lot of time doing it, so it is Green Star ready, but it is not. It's not to the same as something like this newer tractor. These newer tractors, and it depends on your year, I believe it's like 16 and up. That's where you're going to start seeing your integrated Green Star stuff or your ISO bus, and not just ISO bus virtual terminal. You're going to actually see an integrated system. And that's going to gain you features because this planter will be Seed Star 4, and it does not really have a monitor. The monitor's through your armrest display there, through your virtual terminal display. And that's where the tractor and the planter actually communicate, and that's why you have all those computers, and you have valves on your vacuum. So if the planter, you speed up and it needs more vacuum, it tells the tractor, hey, boost my hydraulics, and the tractor will deliver more hydraulics to the vacuum to maintain certain pressures, things like that. This is an 8R280, 280 engine horsepower, and I believe PTO horsepower is about 228, which would put this as a modern day 8400 or an 8330. And not that we will go fast all the time with this planter, but the ability to pull a row unit at twice the speed starts to require much more horsepower. At that point, you need to start looking at, instead of maybe 5-6 horsepower, maybe 8 horsepower row unit, you start looking at like 13 to 15 horsepower per row unit. So based off of our own data in our soil types, in our conditions, a planter like we're building here will require about 195 to about 210 PTO horsepower. So it will be matched and mated to this tractor. It would also work on such tractors as the older Soundguard bodies, or in our particular case, that 4850. The downside of that would be you're going to lose your auto vac functions. And yes, you can manually run them, and yes, it will run through a virtual terminal display, but those are just certain features that are luxuries to have, and the IVT transmission makes things a little easier to work with as well. And we only have 3 remote outlets on a tractor, so we would need power beyond. So this, in our operation, will be what we use. So a modern day 6, 7, or 8,000 series tractor, if you're going to build a planter like this, is really what's needed to make it work or communicate correctly. 7240, 1780, and 1785 are all sold as a 611 or a 815. And what that is a split row planter, meaning 6 rows of corn, 11 rows of soybeans, or 8 rows of corn and 15 rows of soybeans. This is the 815, and these toolbars are non-folding and non-flex, which can be of concern depending upon your geographical area. The 611 was dropped entirely, as well as many other 6 rows in the John Deere lineup. And the 815 version was recreated with the model 1745. Why did we not buy a 1745 or other brand of split row planter? To my knowledge, the only high-speed 815 marketed currently would be the Kinsey 3505, and that's available with bulk fill and with the Kinsey, I think it's called Blue Vantage, high-speed row units. That planter will be significantly more cost than we have here, as well as the need for an additional display and technology system in the tractor, whereas we can just plug in to our current 8R that we just showed in the video here and operate this planter. That 8R has additional duties in our operation. This planter is drawbar hitch, and there'll be some wires and hoses to attach. A very quick and simple connection between running maybe some tillage tools or other operations, then being able to go in and plant. And we wanted a planter we can do corn and soybeans with, but this will probably just get mainly used on soybeans, as we intend to plant soybeans at the same time as corn. Yes, a 1745 does lift up and fold, and yes, they have a much improved marker system. And yes, it is a factory configured planter that is ready to go, but it is not available in ExactEmerge, and I had a chance to obtain those row units or that kit at a very reasonable price, and I was able to obtain the stuff you're seeing here at a very reasonable price. So for what we'll have in total configuration and what we'll have is not available on the market. Nobody, to my knowledge, has done a planter like this, where you have bulk fill in an 815 with a high-speed row unit in John Deere. That factory will hook up to the ISO system of the tractor and have all the modern day features. So I believe this will be a one-of-one planter, unless somebody watches the videos, becomes curious, which is the point of the videos, and wants to recreate it. And yes, we'll be using the 8R280 on it, and yes, we could use the 4850 as far as our operation. That'd be the only 2 tractors suitable to use on it, but we will not be planning on using the 4850 because to do that, you would be losing certain communications as well as certain features throughout the Seedstar 4 programming. Yes, it will work, it will plant fine, but I would prefer not to give up features. Additionally, I think it would be at full load capacity pulling this very fast. The row units were the key to this project. The toolbar came second. When we knew we were going to take this project on, I began to look at options. So I was going to use a 1745, which would also be the same as a 1765 8-row marker. The only way to buy it is through parts. I was going to make my own wheel frames or modules. You'd have to go find or buy the rephasing cylinders, as well as all the vacuums, and buy everything else through parts or wherever you could find it. Now this toolbar is basically just a 7x7 box tube, a 6x6 box tube for the rocker, which is your wheels, and then this is a 3x7 rectangle tube up front. Why do they have the rectangle tube up front? These planters have liquid tanks that set up there, or a dry fertilizer system that sits up there, and they'll put like 2x2 banders that come in front, I suppose because they run a real estate and all the units go across the rear. Prior to finding this toolbar, I had actually planned on doing a complete scratch build, and as I just stated about the markers and the wheel modules, where to obtain them. With this toolbar, the key things that I was wanting to watch out for or be able to figure out as the process of build continued would be turning radius. We don't have ample room here for the tractor duals to come back. I would rather turn into this hitch with a tire than to hit this bar. We did check all that, checked all our parameters. Everything actually works very well, and it's very thick and heavy, which was also a concern. It would be light duty and flimsy. This is 3/8 thick steel, and a lot of it's a 1/2 inch thick steel back there. So it's quite heavy duty. This toolbar is well made. and saved a significant amount of cost over buying it. Just the raw cost of iron, plus going and buying markers from John Deere, which are available basically only through parts. And anytime you buy anything through parts only, usually the price is prohibitive. So this seemed like the best option. Now, if I was going to had built this scratch toolbar, I was going to utilize a walking tandem offset, so one wheel back there, one wheel more forward, with three-phasing cylinders. I would not have had a rocker shaft out front like that. Of course, the wheels would have been in front, would not have had this bar, and probably just would have used one piece of box tube. For the hitch, I had a plan in mind to make it center flex, although it was a little bit challenging in the build. But again, we decided to go with this route because this is all available things besides the Volk fill being factory installed on it here. Otherwise, it is all stuff available from John Deere that was either dealer installed or factory installed, and decided to keep it as original as possible, as well as something you can get parts for through your dealers instead of a homemade concoction. Now, what things we're working on at this point would be preparing the frame for the build. I am doing layout work, so I got a CCS fan that we're going to be mounting. I bought the flange bracket here, as well as the fan. I could only find it through parts, as most junkyards had already been picked over. And this all has to be in conjunction, so you have to lay your steps, you have to lay your fan. And I want to keep the build looking as factory John Deere as possible, as well as easy to service, and as well as using John Deere parts. So again, it would look like it was built by them and not a crude blacksmith shop. Now, this planter, this front bar does not really add a whole lot of strength to it, and you're not talking a huge 40-foot wide planter. You're 17.5 feet, I believe, working with, total 20 feet out in the field with, because your row space adds to your working with. Anyway, so you probably could hack up the frame, and that's likely to happen here, just to allow better access to modules and things like that. And we will not be running any form of liquid fertilizer on this planter, and even if I did, I would change the way it's mounted to it. And we have some pretty nice heavy 8-bolt hubs here that we're going to figure out a way to either get different tires or at least new tires. And I think these had a little bit of a tendency to duck walk, kind of wobble, and especially when you're adding the high speed to it. You add speed, you need to add weight. So that's all factors that need to come into play here in this build, and things I'm working on right now. You guys will see that in the next series of videos, pick up as this all goes together. But for this video, at least I wanted to offer an explanation as to why the build, what we chose, the components we did, as well as explain how the build will be going together. So stay tuned for the continuation of this video series, as well as more information about this as we go. Hopefully anybody interested in doing a project like this was able to obtain and learn some data from the video. And thanks for watching.